All right, so this next part is actually very much supplemental. This is if you don't understand this whole six segments and like six segmental spinal nerves that are like gonna branch and become dorsal and ventral parts. I'm gonna draw this out on this diagram of basically an early embryo. It's really kind of like a shark, but we kind of look like sharks as an embryo to help you understand the lumbosacral plexus divisions a little bit, and also maybe the brachial plexus divisions a little bit, and in this whole grand scheme of like, why is it splitting and going dorsal and why is it splitting and going ventral? So if we have our embryo, okay, our embryo is going to have a cranial portion and a caudal portion. Remember, cranial is the head area. The caudal portion is the tail area. This is less important for your class because I'm teaching this slightly differently. But it has a dorsal side, right? This is where our fin would be if we're a shark. And our ventral side is our belly, okay? So we're going to see that there's going to be 6 segments that are going to make up our limb. So we're going to see that we're going to follow our lumbosacral plexus nerves to help us understand this in just a different way in case you're really concerned about this. So imagine this is the dorsal side of my limb bud and the ventral side is underneath, but we can kind of see through it. Maybe that will be helpful. This might actually just confuse you even more. If it does, just ignore it, all right? But we're going to see we have L2, L3, L4, L5, S1, and S2. So those 6 segments are making our limb, right? And we're going to remember that those 6 segments have a ventral ramus that is going to come forward ventrally and is going to help us with innervating our limb, our lower limb in this case, okay? But we want to remember that our limb has a front side and a back side. So it has a front side and a back side. We have to split our ventral ramus. So our ventral ramus has to split into different divisions. And those divisions are going to go towards the back of the limb or the front of the limb. And that's what this whole, the femoral nerve is dorsal versus the obturator nerve is ventral, because we're going to see how these have to divide and go either to the back side or the front side, okay? So what you're going to see is that did I get the right color? Yeah, sure. L2, L3, and L4 are going to come together, and on the back side of my limb pad, that creates my femoral nerve, just like that. And then I'm going to have L2, L3, and L4 come together. And when they come together, it creates the obturator nerve. This is going to be a harder aspect for you to understand because it's a flat picture that I'm looking at. But maybe I'll try to draw it like looking down as well. And then we're going to see that we're going to have L5, S1, and S2 that come together, and that's dorsal. And this creates the fibular nerve. And we're also going to have L5, S1, and S2 coming together, and that creates our tibial nerve, okay? So remember how ventral things have to go ventral, dorsal things have to go dorsal. So we're going to see how L4 has to hitch a ride here on L5, but only where the femoral nerve is, the fibular nerve is. So here you can remember the femoral and the fibular nerve have to have a connection, the 2 F's. That's what I was remembering. I forgot for the last video. And then you're going to see that the obturator nerves, L4, has to come and it has to hitch a ride with where the tibial nerve is right there, because both of those are ventral divisions. So remember our Christmas colors, green and red go together. And if this is still like, wait, what? This is super confusing. I don't understand this. This is why I cut some of this material out. Let's say we cut our limb and we're looking down on our limb. And this is dorsal and this is ventral, okay? Now we're going to see that we're going to have one of our divisions another division, and another division like that. And those 3 divisions that are dorsal are going to create our femoral nerve. And then we're going to see that we have 1, 2, 3 divisions of L2, L3, and L4. Maybe I'll put that on here, L2, L3, and L4. And this is L2, L3, and L4 that are going to come ventral. And that creates our obturator nerve. And so for our last 3 segments, we're going to see that L5, S1, and S2 have a dorsal division. So this is L5, S1, and S2. So those dorsal divisions create our fibular nerve. And then we're going to have ventral divisions, 1, 2, 3 here, which is going to be L2, L3, and L4, which create the tibial nerve. So if you look at your limb like this, you're going to see 4 chunks for the limb, and each chunk is going to be innervated by one of the 4 nerves. This will come in handy later when we look at muscles, because the muscles of the lower limb are in a quadrant system. So 4 chunks, and those 4 chunks of muscles have things in common. That thing that's in common is they're all innervated by the same nerve, okay? So we're gonna see we have dorsal ones and we have ventral ones. And then this is where cranial and caudal would come in. These ones are towards the head, so they'd be cranial, and these ones are to the tail, so they would be caudal. But don't worry so much about that. You just want to know where you're innervating, okay? Then when embryonic development proceeds, this is going to twist, so the limb twists like that and twists like that, meaning anything that was on the ventral surface becomes posterior, and anything on the dorsal surface becomes anterior. So our limb essentially twists in that direction. So we see how the dorsal part becomes anterior and the ventral part becomes posterior. I hope so anyway. But this is actually very complicated material, which I'm not going to teach you in much detail. This is more if you didn't understand why some of the divisions are dorsal and why some of the divisions are ventral. Okay, if you still have a problem with this, you can come talk to me during office hours, but don't think too hard about this. This is definitely totally supplemental. It's not in the lecture. You're not going to be held responsible for like cranial dorsal, caudal dorsal, any of that stuff.